Hey, what's happening everyone? I am Sir James from Gamerfuzion.com, and today I'm here to provide you with my review for Lost Dimensions, which is available for both the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Vita. But do keep in mind that my review here is based off the Vita copy of the game. So first off, let's go ahead and talk about the story. Right after you select the new game, you are greeted with a really nice cinematic scene that's pretty much explaining what exactly is going on within the game's world, and pretty much chaos. That is right, you have this weird crazy maniac who's calling himself the End, who's pretty much threatening to blow up the world. So here you have all the leaders around the world trying to figure out how to stop this guy. So they send in their full army in full force, but unfortunately their army is no match for him at all, and the world is on the brink of destruction with only 1 hour left on the clock. So it decided to send in these specialized people known as the Gifted, and they're basically individual groups of people who have their own unique abilities and set of skills to go stop this maniac once and for all, and to hopefully save the world. Now, going over the graphics, visually the game doesn't look too bad on the PlayStation Vita. When you are pretty much talking with the individual characters, those are nicely detailed with their model designs and of course their in-game models during combat scenes. However, I did notice a couple little fuzziness. For example, when you're in the lobby, it seems like just everything has a little bit of a fuzzy tone, and there's no way for me to change that, especially when you're moving your mouse around. It seems to kind of lag all over the place. And of course, during the combat scenes, the buildings and the detail lack really much of any kind of detail, so it's really just the character models that stand out, while the background scene just kind of feels a little bit out of place. But overall the detailing isn't too bad, just a couple little minor issues here and there. But overall, like I said, the character models are really nice, and of course the 2D animations when you have the characters interacting with each other, and plus the really nice cinematic scenes. Now let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay, because overall the gameplay isn't too complicated to understand, because it's both you and your opponent take turns moving your characters around and issuing commands. But before we talk about the combat portion, let's talk about preparation, because preparation before the combat is one of the more crucial aspects to this game, because how you set up your team is going to determine the win or loss outcome. So first off, in preparation is where you get to choose who you want in the combat zone. Now this game offers a lot of different characters with each of their own unique abilities, and of course some of these characters have their own personal weapons. You have mixtures between melee, magical abilities, and of course ranged weapons. So here, depending on the map, sometimes the map might throw at you where you have to have two people in a group and they're going to be scattered over the place. Maybe you might have two 4-man teams. Maybe everyone's going to be on the same exact spot, so you don't have to worry about anything. But again, determining on what map you're going to be playing is kind of crucial how you set up your team. Now the nice thing about this is that if you don't use selective players in that combat zone for that mission, they will still gain experience, and it's one of the nice ways to kind of keep the game moving forward instead of having to go back to replay a certain level to level up specific characters. So I like how they kind of keep the game in motion rather than being held back for whatever reason. Now in the combat zone, the way it's broken down is like this. When you're able to move a character, that character is able to move a certain distance. Some characters may be able to move a bit further than others, and of course some characters might only have a limitation in terms of like a very short distance for whatever reason the case may be. Maybe for example some of the medical people or those who are magic builders. So pretty much what happens is that when you move your character, you are also able to issue commands as long as you have an opponent in range. So obviously a character with a range ability will be able to attack a character from the distance, while those with only melee based skills will have to get up close and personal with the opposing player. So pretty much what happens here is that you have this really cool mechanic called assist. So let's say I happen to have a 3 ranged unit team. My 2 teammates are close to each other and they have the enemy within range. So after I issue my first attack, my 2 teammates next to me will assist me during that combat phase. So meaning not only will I attack, those 2 will attack, meaning that there's going to be 3 chances to kill that target or deal some heavy damage. Now also this ability is active for the opposing team, so basically if the enemy has a chance to get, an additional assist or basically issue various of commands, the enemy will also take advantage to it, because the AI actually plays a little bit smarter, but sometimes not too smart. Also too, some of the abilities is that you have the gift ability, and the gift ability is basically their own personal skills like magic or healing. And of course you have this other nice perk where it basically allows you to give a player who already went an additional turn. So overall, like I said, it's basically you and your opponent take turns, moving characters around, and overall, in the end, you're just basically trying to work your way from the bottom of the tower to the top to defeat the end and to save the world. But you got to keep in mind of the plot twist that's happened in the very beginning of the game, which I personally left out for spoiler reasons. Now let me go ahead and talk about the sound portion of the game, because there is a couple minor little issues, but before I get to that, let's go ahead and talk about the voice actors. The voice actors did a really good job portraying as their roles for each of the individual characters, and it really felt like I was watching an anime during the cinematic scenes, and I wanted more of that, or at least its own TV show if it's not one already. And of course, next up is the soundtrack, and the soundtrack was really good, especially during the combat phase. It had a really nice kick to it. However, the only minor issues that I have is, first off, this game offers a lot of dialogue, and most of the dialogue isn't being read at all. You actually have to read that yourself. So during the scenes where you actually have to read the dialogue, the voice actors will make one or two little words here and there. That's about it. Now, I know it's very common in games like this where basically you have to read a lot of dialogue, and then like, a scene later or so, you might have the characters actually speaking the dialogue. But with a game that's providing a lot of information, especially for something like this, it would have been nice to hear all the characters, especially when you're having these chit chats trying to organize of who could be trusted and whatnot, because one of the main things in this game is do not trust anyone. So it'd be kind of nice to just hear the characters talk and maybe kind of indicate from the tone of their voice of who isn't sounding too serious or who's sounding a bit off, so you can kind of figure out, okay, who is the actual traitor. But again, this is just my own personal opinion. I'm not holding it against the game, just something I wish it had. And the other thing is, when you're interacting with these characters, the music that plays during that time repeats over and over. Now, I don't mean repeat as in like it'll play for a certain amount of time then repeat, but basically every time you go to that menu, the track starts completely over, and it can get annoying because you're going to be hearing that a lot. But again, those are just my minor issues with the game, so let's go ahead and jump into the lifespan. Now, going over the lifespan for this title, overall the lifespan is okay. It's not something that you're going to beat and instantly want to go back to replay it over and over again, though there is some nice trophies to get along the way. And pretty much the game is nice and lengthy. That can provide you up to 15 to 20 hours of gameplay, especially if you happen to run in and struggle with some of the issues in game. But overall, like I said, the lifespan is just pretty much okay. Not something that you're going to want to pick up over and over again, but definitely worth the value. As for the innovation, was there anything new here? Was it something that we've already seen before? We've seen a lot of these mechanics used in video games today, which isn't too common. However, the innovation here was the little plot twist that they issued in the very beginning of the game, which definitely changed up the pace and how you need to handle each situation. But like I said, I left that piece of information out because it is a heavy spoiler, but the way it was executed for this game was a really nice change of pace and definitely changed up how I had to look at this game. Instead of playing it from start to finish, I had to jot down all kinds of information, take notes, pay attention to any and all information that I got for every single person in the group. But the way it was played out was nicely done. But in the end, I had a great time with this game, even though I might not have a huge replay value, but overall the experience was fulfilling, the animation was nice, the combat was solid. But in the end, I'm going to give Lost Dimensions on the PlayStation Vita an 8 out of 10. If you guys have any questions, leave that in the comment section down below. But until then, I am Sir James from Gamerfuzion.com, where we empower your gaming.